Hello and welcome to the Ag Culture Podcast, where we cultivate tomorrow by inspiring agripreneurs and ag innovators through real-life perspectives in agriculture. I'm Paul Windemaller, your host on this journey of exploration and growth. On today's episode, I have a very special spot here that I'm recording. I am in Bonito in Mato Grosso do Sul, Brazil, on the Nuffield Contemporary Scholars Conference week here in Brazil. And you can see behind me, we're at a beautiful limestone riverside area where we're just spending some time reflecting on what we did this week here in Brazil, what we'd learned. And I'm going to take the time to interview several scholars that were with me at the conference this week. You'll have the opportunity to hear some insights that they're taking away and also their perspective from their area of the world. Now, there's 15 different countries represented here at this conference. And I have to say, this is probably the highest caliber of young people that I've ever met in one place from around the world in agriculture. And it's been absolutely amazing, the things that we did this week, the things that we were able to discuss, very intense, very tough topics at times, and also learned a lot about Brazilian agriculture. So I'm going to share some of that with you in the future, but today's episode is going to be the findings and hearing from other scholars that were here with me. So I hope you enjoy hearing what they have to say. Well, Sophie.
Hi.
Welcome back. You're the first guest to come on this podcast twice. How does that make you feel?
It's an honor. I'm not sure what accent I'm going to have because I've been so exposed to so many people. I feel like I could have American, Australian, New Zealand, although that's the same as American, isn't it? I shouldn't say that.
Don't tell them that.
French.
There's a bit of that.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a conversation about this week.
Yeah.
So we've been here in Brazil with people from 15 different countries, right? We've had a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. We've also had a lot of serious conversations. First of all, I know people have probably heard you talk on this podcast before, but if you don't mind saying where you're from, what you do on a regular basis.
Yeah. So I am Sophie Gregory. I'm an organic dairy farmer from Dorset, which is down the bottom of England, southwest. And my main role is looking after the cows, really. Although for the last 2 weeks, it's not been. It's been Nuffield. But yeah, so I do quite a bit on different boards, and I enjoy the mix of actual farming and connecting with people through some of the other work I do.
So why did you decide to do Nuffield? Why are you here?
Ooh, we've just done this question as a group session. So for me, and I just still get a bit slightly PTSD about this stuff because we had to submit a video as part of our application that said why we wanted to do it. And it took me about 300. I still got nearly all of them on my phone. It was the raining and etc. And I still got that up to find the actual one that I wanted to submit. So for me, it was the business is quite stagnant, I suppose, and I felt like I wasn't really going anywhere in terms of my career. So it was that opportunity, and I think it's the contacts, and also, someone once said to me, look at someone who's doing something you want to do and copy what they've done. And most of my role models have done Nuffield, so that is really the reason why.
Awesome. Throughout this week, we've had a lot of talks. We've had a lot of activities.
Yeah.
So what was the most impactful visit, talk, or activity that you experienced this week?
Mixture between the life journey that we had to do. So we had to plot our life on a scale and see where the dips and the troughs and stuff. And that was quite a good icebreaker, I think, as a group. Obviously, the snorkeling yesterday was incredible. But also the talk this morning was really good with Wayne, was exceptional. His name is Wayne, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not that I was just so involved in this conversation and about how future direction of life, success is built on the people that turn up and have a place at the table. So consistency over skill every day. And I just think that was a real take home. if you don't attend something, if you don't get out there, then someone else will tell your story. And that's a huge part of my life. And sometimes the bit that I have to stand up for why I do some of the social media stuff I do, but it is so much about telling the story and having it from the farmer, not from someone who's never been on a farm. And that way you can just have a positive impact on your what do you call it, sector, industry.
Yep. What was the most challenging conversation that you had this week?
I don't know if it's challenging conversation, but it's challenging. What stretched me the most is the intensity of being with people 24/7, because I am actually quite an extrovert, but I am in ways an introvert. As in my farming day, I would at least have half an hour working on my own, if not more. And I've found that challenge of making space for that time to think hard, because I've not wanted to miss out on anything. But it's been like I was explaining to Tom, it's been like carving in constant heat. It's like there's no off point, but I think that's what it's about, isn't it? It's actually, without us realizing it, we've been put through a test this week, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's a test of stamina, test of connection, test of comfort zone massively. I think probably doing some of the group work with people I'd never met before was a challenge as well, because it's different cultures, different languages. I'm very fortunate in the fact I speak English, and that is just I forget how, when you come to places like this, that is a gift we've given through where we've been born, I shouldn't take that for granted, if that makes sense. So that language barrier for some people must have been really tough in a big groups of people.
Yeah, definitely. The one thing I did forget to mention is it's been about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, or what is that, 40 degrees Celsius.
See the sweat.
Yeah, we're sitting here sweating, looking at the water. That's a lot cooler than what we're sitting in right now. So we have been in Brazil.
Yeah.
We have seen a lot of Brazilian agriculture.
Yeah.
A tidbit of it, right?
Yeah.
What's been the most interesting thing that you've learned about Brazilian agriculture this week?
I mean, it's got to be the deforestation. It's got to be what right do we have to say in our country about the deforestation of Brazil, when really most of our country started as a forest, and they are just further behind, as in they're doing what we did quite a long time ago. And I feel a huge guilt that I was making mass decisions on, not wanting to feed soya, because I didn't really understand it was the census that all soya was bad.
Soybeans.
Soybeans. And I've been here and I've seen it being done sustainably, and I think it's got to be part of a bigger picture. Yes, we should have some limits on the amount of rainforest, etc., that gets down, and that needs to be made by the right people. But some of the work they are doing here in trying to support the agriculture that they can do here, it's a very different climate. You can't just say, let's just go and graze loads of cow. It doesn't work like that. It's boiling, and it's not suited for all farming practices. They have done a really good job of breeding cattle that suit their environment. That's one of the things that I've seen, is that they don't look like our cows at all. Long ears, totally different shapes. But they've just adapted things, and I think that that's what stood out, is the rainforest. Actually, how I feel about soya. I understand it a lot more, and also their ability to adapt to the climate they're farming in has been massive for me. Big take homes.
Yeah, definitely. Great points. Have you had any paradigm shifts this week in your thought?
Absolutely. My biggest one is that there is a whole lot of world out there other than my farm, and how insignificant my farm is compared to the world. And I think I was living very naively in this little bubble, and actually making decisions that they stress me out beyond belief, that actually, if you put it in a world context, are so small. So I don't know quite what I'm going to do with that yet, but it's just made me feel a bit more comfortable about making decisions at home because of the scale of them. I'm looking at, the size of the country has blown my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, anywhere in the UK is close by now. Any point, when are we thinking, about going 6 hours to Scotland? Nothing.
Yeah. So you mentioned about your paradigm shift, that you're not quite sure what you're going to do with that yet, right?
Yeah.
What do you see, reflecting on this week, that is going to be your biggest take-home thing that you're going to take with you, that you want to change about how you operate, how you think, how you interact in your organizations that you're involved with?
I think that it's the consistency and the turning up, and to remember that even when it gets tough, to turn up. I think that's going to be my big thing. Just keep turning up when it's tough and tough gets going. Don't turn down opportunities. And also the farm will run without you. That's my biggest take home. My cell count and back scan has been better than they have ever been since I've been away. And part of me are very frustrated by that. No, it's not really. But the space has been made for the others to come up and show their real ability. And I think that has been a massive refreshment. I'm not sure they'll feel the same when I get home, but long term they'll know that. And it needed something like Nuffield to get me to do that, because I am probably naturally quite a control freak, and I get my identity from my work, and I think that's been a big thing for me is learning that actually I'm more than my job, I'm more than my farm, and that's been just through conversations that I've had. My ability to actually be able to talk to other people who are in different parts of the agriculture sector industry. There is more to me than my farm, and that's been really refreshing.
Yeah. One last thing before we go. As part of this, I want to give you the opportunity to say what your topic that you're studying is, so that way people can reach out to you.
Yeah.
And if they can help you in any way, that would be a great opportunity for that.
So my topic title is "What's the Future for Organic?" I probably want to say this is that we've had one session where we've got to go round and find the others that are doing similar topics from across the world. And there was 3 of us doing organics, 1 organic garlic, 1 organic crop integration. So we've started a WhatsApp group, and we actually spent the whole 10 minutes talking about why were we not organic? So no, why we were organic, as in why weren't we conventional? Because the margins are so tight and things. And it was a bit like Alcohol Anonymous, but for organics. And it all came back to this feeling inside us that we can't shift. And so that was really exciting for me, because I want to understand that and why, and what we're going to do about that. And is there, do we need to look in other industries where they've created a market that's not organic, not conventional, that the way we farm can be valued and marketed? So I need to look for that. But also anything in policy around organic, anything where organics completely failed, like Sri Lanka. But also the farmers, why do we feel in our gut that is the right thing to do? And so I need to understand that. So anyone who's got contacts in organic all around the world, I'm going America, June, July, and then I'm going Sri Lanka, India, China, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, Tassie, and home. So anyone across there, yes, please. I'll be in those countries end of the year, but America, June, July.
And we'll have all her contact information for social media in our show notes for this episode.
Follow me, Farmer in Training. Probably should do a plug on that.
Farmer in Training.
Farmer in Training on the Instagram.
There you go. All right. Thank you, Sophie, so much.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. So nice to meet you in person as well, Paul.
All right. So my next guest is been my roommate for a few days, João, and you are from Brazil.
Yeah, I'm from Brazil.
But you are a scholar for Nuffield.
Scholar, yeah, for this year, 2024. And it's been a pleasure to be your roommate.
You haven't been too noisy. No, it's been great. It's been fun having some conversations with you through the last few days. And why don't you tell the audience about what you do on a daily basis and exactly where you are in Brazil?
Okay. I'm originally from Minas Gerais. That's a state up in the north of São Paulo, but today I live in São Paulo. But I do travel a lot in the country, and I know a bit about many different states today. I work at a large multinational company, and I'm mostly doing 2 different things. One is looking at how we can incentivize farmers to go over a degraded pasture land. That's our new frontier for keep developing farming in Brazil, and also in bioenergy. I think that's going to be key for decarbonizing the economy, rely more on biogenic energy. So that's pretty much what I do today, and lots of fun. I hope that at Nuffield, I'm gonna have a chance to travel all over the world and see how the others are doing similar stuff, get inspired, and and connected to some other people who are also doing interesting things.
Right. And we've had that already this week, haven't we?
Yeah.
Before we get into that, though, I want to ask you, why did you decide to do Nuffield?
I haven't heard anything about Nuffield before. And then a friend of mine, she was like, "Hey, I think you have just the right profile. Like, you go there, you're gonna do like a great study all over the world, and you're gonna meet super interesting people who are also doing interesting stuff." And yeah, and then I started to know more, to research a bit more, talk to the people, go to the meetings, and I realized that could be part of a next great step for me. And yeah, then I applied to join, and yeah, fortunately,
And here you are.
yeah, and here I am. Super happy to be part of that.
Well, you've been a great host this week for all the CSC scholars from out of the country. So it's been fun interacting with all the Brazilian scholars here in their home country.
Yeah, thanks a lot. For us, it's pretty much a pleasure and a privilege to have so many people coming from abroad to be here with us, to understand more about our agriculture, our livestock production, and also about our touristic place and the culture in general. So
we've really enjoyed those aspects. The last couple of days with the heat.
yeah, the heat's beating us hard.
Yeah, very hard.
You can feel it, but yeah, we've been trying to manage, like, to go to the swim a bit, lots of AC, try to mitigate that.
We've all survived so far, right?
Yeah. And yeah, please don't take us wrong. That's not what we call warm hospitality.
Oh man, that was a good one. What's been the most impactful activity or visit that you've experienced this week?
I think that for me, the discussion that we had, all the days have been like super amazing, but the discussion we had today on a bit of the global citizenship, connecting to the other days that we were discussing about, it's not about getting involved with the politics with the leadership reference that we have today, but how can we raise the voice of farmers and farming in a different way, and try to influence and to show like that great things are being done. And it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna go there, and we have to work for it, and we gotta separate what are the nice things and the nice farmers who are doing great, and the others that don't care much, and stimulate and give the right incentives for those who are really committed to make it different. And yeah, I also think that through Nuffield, all of that's possible, because one of the things that we are super aligned among the scholars is about this commitment. Like, everyone, most of us could keep doing whatever we are doing. Like, we're all very successful people, have great families, and like, but we want more. Like, we want to do more. We believe that we should bring some more impact, and that's why we're here. So those discussions are super important, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's great perspective. What's the most challenging conversation that you've had this week? Has there been somebody that you really disagreed with in a conversation, and you were trying to get that hashed out, or was there something that really challenged your thinking that you actually changed your mind on?
Yeah, there are some. I think when we talk about farming, about things that we are doing, we have we have talked about the myth and the paradigms that and how people see stuff, and sometimes, like, when we say something to someone, they can get hurt by a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
We also get like a bit hurt when people think that Brazil is all about deforestation or destroying the nature. Like, we know that's not like that,
right?
And it is hard to show and to tell people what is that. So I think it's hard, this conversation about how we can change the narrative around something, and also, like, it's a bit of showing the data, showing the direction, and also while there are lots of people who wants to say the opposite because they have certain interests, and yeah, those conversations are hard. And one of the things that I think that align, like if we think like we have a broader view on the things, like more as a global citizenship, we have like more collective view, like in companies or in countries, and but we also have the individual one.
Yeah.
And sometimes things get a bit messed up in the world because like individual interests or company or country interests are on top of the global interest. Like we all live in the same world,
Right.
and we all need it to succeed.
Yeah.
And the discussions when you start going down to more of an individual or at least in the company or in the country level, mostly the country level here, the discussions that we are having, sometimes like there are different interests and different things that and beliefs
Yep.
that can be that sometimes do not converge,
Right.
and yeah, create interesting situations.
Great. So, what's been the most impactful thing that you're going to take away from this week?
One of the most impactful things that I've lived this week is the way we communicate, the way we present things, completely changed the perception and engagement of people. We had like great people who are leading awesome companies, doing a great job, and we also have some of our we had some of our scholars presenting, and I got stuck by the presentation of a scholar. The presentation was in a way like the storytelling, all of that was super engaging and was super like you understand everything and you got to the point and like it is like whoa, this is different. And I think that Nuffield we can develop ourselves to be more in that way.
Yeah.
Not like pretty much of an institutional thing, and that's what, in my opinion, what inspires people to do better.
Right.
And they gotta feel motivated. They gotta feel engaged into something. They gotta, yeah. That's what I'm gonna bring with me. Like, how can I communicate better, and how can I engage better whoever is around me to do better stuff. And yeah, that's something.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great. I really appreciate that perspective. To wrap up, I want this to be valuable for you as well, since you're giving this value to the audience. Tell us again what your topic is that you're going to be studying, where you would like to go in the world to do that. So that way, if somebody listening to this has contacts or wants to reach out to you to help you with your topic, that they can find your information in our show notes and reach out to you and try to help you with that.
Sure, that would be wonderful. So I'm gonna study more about, as I said, like decarbonization is something that we have to do as a society, and I think that a great way of doing that is investing more and evolving more in bioenergy. So, and I believe that farmers have an important role on that. We can have more food security by producing more feedstock for bioenergy. That's what I believe, and that's what I would like to gather evidences to prove or disprove and learn more about that. And I'll be super happy if anyone has any hint, any contact that could help me on this journey. And yeah.
And what countries?
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. What countries are you looking at mostly traveling in on your journey?
Yeah, I think it is super important. I'm going to be traveling around here in Argentina, but also to the US. Like, there's a lot happening there. Also Europe, a lot of the energy consumption and the energy challenges are in Europe.
Well, thanks, João. I appreciate you doing this and being on here and sharing your thoughts from the week. And if you have any questions or any way that you can help João on his journey, reach out to him and check out our show notes for that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the chat in this amazing environment.
Yeah,
And,
beautiful spot we're here.
and thanks a lot. Very glad we met, and see you soon somewhere
right.
in the world.
That's right. Thank you. So now, next up is Jaclyn Wilson from the United States.
Correct.
Could you tell our audience where you're from and what you do at home?
Yep, sure. I'm a commercial cow-calf producer from western Nebraska, and then along with that, we have a direct-to-consumer beef business called Flying Diamond Beef, which we ship beef all over the U.S. Well, I should say except Hawaii. We haven't shipped to Hawaii yet, but every other state we have.
Is that coming? Hawaii?
I don't know. I hope so someday, but at the same time, shipping is such a challenge. I'm kind of scared to what's going to happen if we get to that point.
Why did you decide to do Nuffield?
I think the biggest reason is there was an ag leadership program that I was involved in my early 20s called the Nebraska Lead Program. And I was about 24, 25, and it's a 2-year-long intensive ag leadership program. And the second year in the program, it's part of the requirement is that you go on an international travel study seminar. Okay. And so it was myself and 29 other individuals that were out of the country for about 2.5 weeks. And our destinations was Russia, Ukraine, and Poland. And it changed my life. I mean, it was life changing. And everything that I do now, professionally or any outside involvement I get in, I really attribute back to those experiences I had in that program. And so when I've known about Nuffield for the last 20 some years, and it was never the right time in terms of where I was at in our operation or even where our operation was at. And it was finally the right time. And now it's really interesting because now I look back on it and I'm like, I want to be able to develop this opportunity for other producers too, and I can't really say, hey, you need to do this program unless I experience it first. Right. And so I'm really hoping that will be the key message and the key takeaway I get out of everything is I can go back, develop, sponsorship opportunities for future Nuffield scholars. And at the same time, maybe even be a mentor for future scholars that really want to continue that international ag leadership development.
That's great. So this week we've had a ton of different activities, a ton of different talks. It's been a pretty intense week. What's been your favorite activity or discussion that we've had so far?
I think that my favorite activity or discussion we've had is just the all-encompassing presentations that are surrounding Brazilian agriculture. I think there's a lot of stereotypes that we have, especially in the United States, right, about Brazilian ag. And so being able to see first and foremost, what they're doing in terms of conserving the environment, along with some of their operating processes and procedures. I think we have it. I know I had it in the back of my mind about the corruption that we always hear about, that's happened in years past. And so seeing it firsthand and really kind of getting a grasp of what's going on in the country and also just their production systems has definitely been my favorite part of the week.
Awesome. So we've had people from 15 different countries that are scholars that we've been interacting with all week. Obviously, different cultural contexts, different contexts in farming. Eventually, that brings up conflict sometimes. So, and maybe not even conflict, just trying to get each other to understand each other's position. So, have there been any conversations that you've had this week that have really challenged you? And if so, what was it about?
I think there has been, and I think that's going to occur, no matter what it is. And for me, it hasn't been so much from different cultures or countries or diverse production systems. For me, it's been more of an age. I've definitely, I'm most groups I belong to, I'm usually on the younger spectrum, and so it's been a little bit different perspective coming in on the older side. And I look back, and we did an exercise one of the days we were here to chart your life story in a timeline. And I mean, in the last 10 years, mine has been like this. And it has been. And there's been some great things and also some struggles. Yeah. But when I look back at those struggles, those were what has developed me as a person.
Right.
And so, I think with time and age comes a lot of experience. And I feel like the older I've got, the more able I am to see a worldwide open picture view, big picture view of every different scenario and situation. And I feel when I look back on the Jaclyn 20 years ago, I was definitely a lot more narrow-minded and narrow-focused in my thought process. And so, it's interesting to see some of those, interacting with some of those scholars that maybe they don't have a timeline that looks like this yet. and seeing, where their thoughts are about things. But I think with that age and hopefully a little bit of wisdom, there comes the opportunity for some of that conflict resolution and being able to have a really good constructive talk about like, hey, I'm listening to your thoughts. I respect your thoughts. That may not mean I agree with them, but you don't have to agree with mine either. But we can have a great conversation, and each hopefully in the end will learn something.
Yeah, I think that's been the most valuable thing for me is to see the things that I can learn out of something that I don't necessarily believe is true, but there's some grains of truth that I see in each conversation, even if I disagree with them, that I can pull out of it to shape how I see the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something, we'll continue to carry on, through this whole experience. Because especially the stresses and strains of like a GFP when we're spending, with 12, anywhere from 10 to 12 individuals, 5 weeks together, traveling literally around the world.
Right.
And we're all going to be a little bit different. And we're not only that, but we're all going to see things a little bit different. So it's recognizing our strengths, but also at the same time, it's understanding where our weaknesses are. And hopefully by that too, we'll be able to just have a great cohesive trip.
So we've went on a lot of farm tours. We went on a lot of sightseeing adventures. We're here today at a great place, enjoying the water and trying to get out of the heat.
The heat, yeah.
What have you learned about Brazilian agriculture this week that's really stuck out to you?
I think the biggest thing I've learned about Brazilian agriculture is I didn't realize how much is required by law to preserve, to have that natural preservation of the ecosystem. And that has been shocking to me. I mean, here we're at Mato Grosso do Sul, which is 20% of every privately owned land entity is required to preserve. That goes up to 80% in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. And then I think what's also really surprised me is the opportunity here for agriculture. I mean, truthfully, from a U.S. perspective, it scares the crap out of me. Because, to have the opportunity to have 2 and then sometimes 3 cropping cycles in 1 year, I can't compete with that in Nebraska. And so, I think those are definitely some of the things that, we maybe have more of a negative stereotype to Brazilian ag, but once they continue to increase the efficiencies they are, I think they're going to be, a global, they already are a global ag leader. And I definitely foresee them continuing to challenge the U.S. and other countries around the world with their production practices for sure.
Yeah, especially as they kind of go through this metamorphosis of land use change, where it was degraded pastures. Then it was more productive pastures, and then a lot of that land is now being converted into row crop production, and even beyond that to higher value row crops like cotton and sugarcane.
Mm-hmm. And I think when we look back, when we look back at the timeline in terms of Brazil as a country development, we still got to think in a way they're a pretty new country with what they're doing. And and their level of efficiency is going from here and it's shooting up really, really fast. And so, it's going to be continued to make sure that we're being aware of our own production practices, especially in the U.S. And instead of just saying, well, hey, you guys are our competition and we're so much better than you, we need to be thinking, you guys are going to be a legit player here for many years to come. And how can we continue to improve our production practices at home so we continue to meet, if not exceed, what you're doing here in this country? Right. That's a little U.S. competition there going on, but I think it's really important.
Yeah. And it's good, healthy competition, right?
It is.
It makes everyone a little bit better.
Absolutely. We have a job, and that's to feed the world. Yeah. And, and yes, we compete with other countries, but at the end of the day, it's being able to be progressive as producers. It's being able to get out, to tell our story, to utilize technology and a lot of those different advancements that continue to propel us forward. We don't want to live by that own mantra, we're doing it this way because this is the way we've always done it. We really need to be adaptable. And I think that's one of the things that programs like this really push those boundaries. It makes you want to think outside the box and go, okay, how can I take some of the things that I'm seeing down here? Can I incorporate those into my operation back home to make me maybe more efficient, more progressive, maybe even more adaptable to a worldwide stage?
Right. That's a great point. What's been your most impactful takeaway from this week?
My most impactful takeaway is that there's a shift I think right now that we're seeing in agriculture, and I mean, and we see it, we hear about it in social media and stuff about, about climate and carbon and emissions and all of this stuff. And I mean, and that's becoming first and foremost, I think, in a lot of our conversations. And I feel, especially in the ranching industry, we're not really jumping on the boat right now because we feel it's something that we've done for years. And so how do we become a part of that conversation by really showing, what we have done and will continue to do in our production systems in order to make sure that we're producing at the most efficient way possible in regards to the environment, to conservation, and also just in terms of overall production. But just a lot of those conversations this week were really centered around those topics. And I think it's something, we need to definitely be more cognizant of and aware of.
So what are you going to do with that?
I think, the biggest thing I'm going to do about it is I'm going to, we developed a program a little over a year ago called EnviroSmart Beef. And it really pushes the point of how an efficient production cycle can have a positive impact on the whole global climate change topic. And so I think, we need to focus more on marketing that message. What are we doing in terms of beef cattle? Because a lot of times, there's been a couple of speakers that have said, the conception of beef cattle, they've been bad for the environment. So how do we get that story out there that, hey, we're not the culprit. There's a spot for us in this overall vision of what, world hunger and world food production looks like in the next 20 years. And we need to make sure we're at that table. And so it's
as a solution, not the problem.
Exactly right. And so it's just getting out there, telling our story, what we're doing, letting people know. A lot of international people think that, the U.S. beef industry is all about confinement and feedlots, and they don't realize our ranch in Nebraska Sandhill is all native pasture that we don't even fertilize year after year. And it just blows their mind when they actually get a different picture of what some of the U.S. beef supply chain looks like. And it's just going to be sharing that and continuing to market those main topics.
So one thing that I want to have the opportunity for you to share is your topic that you're studying for Nuffield and what countries you plan on going to, because I want this to be a two-way street where the audience can help you along your journey as they follow you through the Nuffield journey that you're experiencing.
Sure. So it took me some thought process to come up with a topic, and a lot of producers in the United States, beef cattle producers, are familiar with our beef quality assurance program. Mm-hmm. The majority of them have that certification, which is voluntary, and there's similar programs in some other countries. For instance, the UK has Red Tractor. They're trying to develop a mandatory program now in the European Union, kind of with those same assurance standards that we have in ours. And last year, our operation was named the 2023 Beef Quality Assurance Cow-Calf Producer of the Year out of over 700,000 cattle producers in the U.S. And one of the things that I've noticed a lot on my previous international travel is there's a real gap for educational opportunities for producers to see how different management styles can improve their overall profitability. So my topic is focused specifically on that, not so much in the U.S., because the U.S. has a great program with BQA, but getting into some of those, those top cattle producing countries, along with some of the third world countries that are starting to focus more on beef supply chain development and seeing what the need is for those educational programs. So for instance, it's looking at packing facilities, where are they seeing excessive bruising at? Is it from low stress cattle handling? Could possibly change that, or is it something like simply changing vaccine protocol? From a country that's giving vaccine still in the rump to giving them in the neck, and what does that look like? And then hopefully being able to find a universal message for producers that we can go in and say, hey, these are some really just easy guidelines you can do that will increase your profitability. So countries. So I'm hoping to come back, of course, to South America. Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina are becoming world powers in beef cattle genetics, and of course with their beef cattle development. I really want to see what's going on there. I'm hoping to go over to some of the African countries, starting with Kenya, and then maybe going down into like Namibia and Botswana, because the cattle industries there are starting to really take off, especially for more indigenous tribe-based areas. Where there would definitely be a lack of education, in terms of cattle management. And then it's kind of a toss up. I do would like to get back into some of the EU countries because I think there's a real need for producer input there. And then I want to spend time both north and south of the U.S., Mexico and Canada, and look at some of their programs. Mexico has some great traceability things that they're doing right now. Canada also does some traceability stuff, and seeing about ways that we could interact with veterinarians or even like extension personnel or even sometimes government officials to just get a better grasp of what the needs for producers are. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I personally, I want the U.S. to eat. I want U.S. to eat beef. I want international people to eat beef. I mean, hopefully it's some of our beef, but I mean, at the same time, we really need to have a positive imagery for just the industry in general.
Yeah. Well, Jaclyn, I really appreciate your perspective and sharing what you learned this week. We'll be posting in our show notes Jaclyn's contact information, so if you can help her in any way on her travels through her Nuffield journey, please reach out to her if you have any questions. I'm sure she'd be happy to have some conversation with you. So thank you so much, Jaclyn.
Perfect. Well, thank you for this. And it's been awesome to get to know you and the other U.S. scholars. I feel we have a real diverse group here. It's so neat to see firsthand.
From across the country.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So now I have Ifan from the UK here with me today.
Yep.
We're still filming here at the park that we're swimming at. We have a little bit of wet hair, so excuse our looks here, but I'm really excited to dig into what Ifan has to say and what his experience was this week. And could you start out by explaining to the audience your background a little bit and where you're coming from and what you do at home?
Yeah. So essentially, I grew up on a small dairy farm in North Wales. We went into milking cows in 2005 when everybody in the UK was exiting, milking 50 pedigree Jersey cows. And I guess growing up, I sort of had bigger aspirations in wanting to farm at scale. You might call it small farm syndrome or small man syndrome, whatever. But at 15, I set myself a personal goal of wanting to milk 1,000 cows one day. And so I left home in 2017, joined a company, started managing a farm, grew equity, then eventually ended up purchasing 30% of the dairy cows on the farm. So that's me now with 330 milking cows and 60 young stock. And we've grown the herd on that farm from 580 cows to 1,000 cows. So I guess I came here to do my Nuffield to try and figure out what's the next step.
Awesome. So I guess that answers my next question. Could you dig a little bit deeper into that? Why you thought Nuffield was the right step for your next step?
Well, I guess when I was talking to sort of people that I admire and mentors, there was a bit of a common theme that a lot of the people that I admired in the industry in the UK had by some coincidence also done a Nuffield scholarship. And so I figured this can't be just a coincidence. There's something about the culture here that is very much inspirational, and I kind of wanted to go somewhere where I'd build confidence to go and take another leap.
Ifan, we've had a lot of activities, talks, and experiences this week. What's been the most impactful that we've had so far for you?
The most impactful talk, and I nearly missed it because the title didn't quite explain what we were going to see. I had the choice between going to see talk about the future for animal proteins, and then there was another one. I can't even remember the title because it didn't relate anything to what it was. It was farming over the borders, and I nearly didn't go to that. And I went to it, and it was a story about a Kiwi dairy farmer that moved from New Zealand, uprooted everything, and set up a dairy farm here in the tropics in Brazil. And so that was a bit of a game changer for me because it sort of showed what can be done with the right sort of mindset.
Yeah, that was a very impactful talk for myself as well. I really enjoyed hearing Simon give his story, his background on coming here. It was quite inspirational. So this week, we've had a lot of conversations with what I think there's roughly 100 scholars here from 15 different countries, different cultures. Have you had some tough conversations this week that really challenged you in your thinking?
Yeah, One challenge I had from another scholar was sort of around politics and policy making. I sort of realised that I've had this rather cancerous view that when it comes to politics, I try and avoid conflict with people, and that I often sit on the fence, and that actually that leaves me sort of excluded from trying to make future progress. And so a couple of people have said, basically, if everybody thought the same way as I did before I came here, then nothing would change. And so that's been quite impactful for me, really, knowing that everyone's vote counts, and even if you're making a small impact with your family or your friends in the area, or whether you're going on a big stage and giving a talk about policy making, that it's important to participate. So
that's great perspective. So now moving on to the topic of Brazilian agriculture. What did you learn about it that might have challenged your original thinking of what Brazil would be like in farming?
Yeah, so I guess it's topical that me and you are here together. I think one talk we had near the pool at the hotel, and we were sort of summarising the day. My misconceptions have certainly been challenged about Brazilian agriculture, and sort of my view towards how we get closer to sort of sustainability in farming and net zero. We sort of looked at a slightly more value-added approach of farming, where we can farm in a way that improves and boosts the environment, but also increases or maintains our productivity. So making sure that we can both feed the people of the earth, but also protect the earth in the same manner. And it was you, Paul, that gave me a bit of stick on a couple of viewpoints that I had, and I really appreciated that because it was an eye opener. In the UK, we're sort of looking at rewilding and taking land out of productive agriculture into more sort of conservation, whereas actually we could do both, and maintain the productivity of our cropping lands, but also boosting wildlife and biodiversity at the same time.
I enjoyed that conversation as well. That was fun. So at the end of it all, what are you going to take home with you that you can say, I can change how I do this? I'm going to change my perspective. This is my big takeaway from this week.
I think, and again, I nearly didn't go to this session again. There was a Chilean wine farmer, and there was just one point. We've probably gathered a lot of information, a lot of figures and data, but there was one bullet point in his presentation, and that was dare to be different. And we've seen sort of themes in terms of people being a bit more open about how they dress, and a bit more open about their views, and open to different sort of societal changes. But I sort of, that struck me. I double underlined it and put stars around it. Dare to be different is important, not to sort of follow the crowd all the time, and to chase your dreams, and if that's different to what other people think is popular, as long as it makes you happy, you should chase that. So it's a bit of a simple. We saw a lot more technical things, but that really struck me, and it's been a bit profound. I've thought about it a while since, and I'm proud to try and think differently and outside the box. So
yeah, that's great. And I've seen your wheels spinning all week, and your insights, and you're really taking to heart what's being said. To have that open-mindedness, that's been really cool to see in your discussions and in your viewpoints. So I applaud you for that.
I appreciate that, Paul, and it's been fantastic meeting you. What an experience.
Now, the last part is I'm hoping the audience can give back to you in a way. So I want to ask you to give a little bit of what you're studying, what's your topic. So if anyone has any ideas or connections, they can contact you and help you with that, and also what countries you plan on visiting on your Nuffield journey.
Yep. So my topic is inspiring the next generation of dairy entrepreneur. And with that, I look to travel to Ireland, New Zealand, China, Chile, and North America. And so, open to anything. And I guess the objective of my study is to try and inspire more new talent into the dairy industry that are not only going to participate, but that are going to change how we do dairy farming, and they're going to grow their own sort of businesses as such. So that's about it.
Awesome. Well, Ifan, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks for being here this week.
Thanks for your time, and I hope everyone at home's enjoyed listening about our Nuffield experiences.
Yes, thank you.